So to hear you say it, April, you would say that you were raised in the Caribbean, you were based in Los Angeles, and you were from outer space. Bay's interdisciplinary artworks combine imagery and social critique, borrowing from and commenting on social media and pop culture, immigration, feminism, generational theory, Afrofuturism, and race, and a whole lot more. Her artworks are time and labor intensive, and they reveal both the depth of her inquiry and her singular voice, which I'm sure you will see is quite distinctive. I am personally consistently blown away by every art show of yours I've seen, including the solo shows at Coagula Curatorial, and the show there was called Comply, fabulous show. And then in the new Band Devices Gallery in South LA, the sold-out Made in Space show, remarkable work. But you've shown your work everywhere else as well. I mean, internationally in Italy, Spain, and Ghana, in West Africa, and in the biennials, biennales, NE7 and NE8 in the Bahamas. So Bay is also an educator. I was not privileged to take your controversial course at Art Center College of Design, but boy, I would have loved to, called Pretty Hurts, Analyzing Process-Based Art and Beyonce #faux feminism. Oh, I want you to teach that course here. But anyway, so and April also is a professor of art at Glendale Community College. Please let us welcome April. Should I turn the lights off?
I can do it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm glad I know it's being recorded because there's some things I'm going to censor. I also want to warn you of triggers. There's some foul language. And I switched it out of dialects because I speak many different dialects. So I'm April Bay. I'm going to introduce myself and where I came from because a lot of my work has a lot of hidden meaning in it based on my origins. So I was raised in the Bahamas, Nassau to be exact. My family is mostly based on Eleuthera. So you kind of see this map here. So Nassau is the red island and Eleuthera is the skinny purple island. And if you don't know much of the Bahamas apart from you going on vacation there, I grew up on what we call the other side of the hill, which is where those of us who actually live there live. So the touristy part is where we go to work and we're like, yes, we have electricity and clean water and look at our beautiful beaches. And then on the other side of the hill, we don't have electricity and we're very poor and the government is very corrupt. The country is also extremely evangelical and homophobic, and women don't have equal rights to men. Good? So I moved to the US to finish high school, mainly because in the Bahamas, if you want a career, you're going to go into banking or tourism. And like my family had a restaurant and they did cruises, and I just definitely 100% knew I did not want to work around tourists or to serve tourists. I was really into art, and there is no career for the arts in the Bahamas. So the plan was to move to the US for me to finish high school. My mom was American, my dad is Vignette, so I could get her citizenship and get the scholarships and go to college. After college, I moved to LA, not intending to go to grad school, just kind of moving here for job prospects, and it was either like New York or LA for art, and I definitely didn't want any more snow. And so I moved here, and immediately, just to give you some background, I learned how to drive in the Bahamas, and in the Bahamas we drive on the left-hand side. So when I moved here, I had to take driver's ed because having someone on this side of the road coming at me really scared me. Like I would always veer over. So it took me a while to learn how to drive. Then I moved to LA, and the freeways had more than 4 lanes. And I was so afraid. So I used to take surface streets everywhere, so it would always take me an hour to get to anywhere I was going. And one of the things that I used to do, and have been doing since I was about 6, was chemically relaxing my hair. And I always went to a hair salon to do it. So when I moved to LA, I lived in the valley, and if you guys know anything about the Valley, it's hard to find black hair salons in the Valley. Like, you have to drive to Inglewood. And so I was Google mapping, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna take me like 2 hours to drive to Inglewood on the surface streets. And so then I started Googling what happens if you don't get a hair relaxer. I just wanted to think about that for a minute. Imagine you have been using a chemical product your whole life to look a certain way because all of the black women, for me, all the black women in my life are telling me that I had to use this hair relaxer. I didn't know what my real hair looked like, and I didn't know what would happen if I stopped using it. And this was like me, a whole ass 21-year-old. Like a whole ass 21-year-old. Googling this. And that's kind of where I came into all of these YouTube videos of black women all over the world showing other black women how to do their hair. So in grad school, I decided to focus on that as my main research. And I published what I call the Millennial Natural Hair Movement. There's me. And it's really funny because like in the Bahamas, in a lot of black countries, you want to be white. White is right. And so I had this delusion all through college that I was relaxing my hair so all of my white friends didn't know I was black. And I remember when I went natural, I went home for Christmas, the college town I went to school in, and my friend was like, oh, your hair's so cool now. I remember when you used to relax your hair in the dorms and you'd say you didn't want to look like Scary Spies. And I was like, yeah, well, I had to get through some shit. And she was like, yeah, we always knew you were black. And I was like, what? I was so shocked. I was like, what? What are you talking about? She was like, well, I mean, even when you relax your hair isn't white. It doesn't move. And that's when I was like, oh snap. Like, they can totally see my texture still. And this is kind of the transition that I went through. And it also kind of explains in grad school, you know, you have to write a thesis. There's a lot of research you have to do. And to explain why I went so deep into hair relaxer, I have to explain what I feel is a common feeling. So have you ever had pain in your body or a sore in your mouth or anywhere, and you can feel the pain, but you want to see what it looks like? Like you just want to see, like even if you cut your leg, you're like, I gotta see what it looks like. I can't explain why we do that. It's just like I need to justify why I'm in this pain. So I wanted to take a really deep look at hair relaxer. So I started buying a lot of hair relaxer and using it to paint, silk screen. This is one of the first pieces that come out of that. When I used to apply hair relaxer on my own, I used to put it on with my fingers. So I started painting with it just as I would put it on my scalp. And then realized it actually eats away photography and posters. And then when I started going to the chemistry and biology department to collaborate to see what it does in a scientific way, I found out that it was like only a small fraction away from being haze remover. And I found this out because I tried to silk screen with it and it removed my entire screen. And I was like, what? Why didn't we just get this? It's cheaper than haze remover. And since like part of my research was on the internet, there were women who, so at this time, YouTube was just getting like started. They just started paying creators to make videos on YouTube. So a lot of these women were making videos in their bathroom, but they were still at low enough numbers to where I could message them and ask them to help me with my thesis. And one of the ideas I had was to collect selfies from people all over the world who had natural hair, and I would put it into a piece. So this piece here is called #PickyHead, which in the Bahamas means nappy head. Like if you went too long without a hair relaxer, someone on the street would yell at you and say, yeah, you're picky now, you're picky head. And when I came here, I realized, oh, they have like a word here, it's called nappy. And picky head is spelled out in hair relaxer. It's like about a quarter of an inch thick. And at this installation, there were 5,000 selfies, and I'm still collecting the selfies. So anytime someone asks me to install this piece, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this was installed at the California African American Museum, right here downtown.
Wow.
Okay. So when I moved to the US, I started, and I still am, I'm still learning about the US and, you know, in particular government and politics. because I grew up learning about a parliamentary system, so I'm trying to learn America's, governmental setup. But I consumed a lot of pop culture, American pop culture, but not like super popular pop culture, like subculture pop culture, if that makes sense. How many of you have seen The Wire on HBO?
Me.
So I watched The Wire, and there was this character on it that I thought was hilarious. His name is Clay Davis. And Clay Davis represents like every black politician from a black community you can imagine. And it's the same thing in the Bahamas. Like these politicians come to our houses and they're like, oh, I'm gonna make sure your electricity is on all the time, and I'm gonna make sure you guys have the best well water, and I'm gonna make sure this, and then they get into power, and they get the money, and they're just like, fish what? Like they don't remember any of the promises that they made. And they take bribes, and they become super corrupt. The whole continent of Africa is just cycling with this equation over and over and over again. And Clay Davis was that in Baltimore. So every time in the show, when someone would call him out on his corruption, or his corrupted plot would get hacked in some way, he would say, shit. And so this is a video of all of the shits.
Think I'm gonna be the scapegoat for the whole damn machine? Shit. Shit, as far as the federal money's concerned, he's everything. The faucet, the goose, the one that lays them golden eggs. Major crimes. Shit. They gonna come talk to me about money laundering in West Baltimore? Shit. Looking forward to working with you. Shit. I took it easy on you, son. Pie in the sky. Shit, partner. And it's your people up in my shit. Not no feds, not no state people from Annapolis. It's motherfuckers from my own city. For all that profile shit, partner, you should be paying me a fee. Maurice Dobie? For governor of my state? Shit. Yeah.
So I was thinking about hair relaxer again, and I contacted the biology department because I heard that they had they had one of those cameras from CSI where they could take video of chemical reactions at the cellular level. And they let me in there because I wanted to see what my hair looked like being chemically relaxed. So we're going back to that whole thing where I want to see it, I want to see what it looks like. So I get in there, and I'm like, I took all my shed hair from the shower that morning, and I have my big bucket of hair relaxer, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And I sit down, and I'm like, this is gonna be 5 minutes of dope-ass video. And he's like, actually, there's no such thing as video, it's actually time-lapse. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, you have to hit the thing over and over. And I was like, how long do I have to do that? And he's like, how long do you want it to be? And I was like, 2 minutes? And he was like, that'll be maybe 6 days or so. I was like, wow. So it took me 2 weeks. Because I had to learn how to use it, and then it didn't work all the time. And I couldn't be there the whole time, so students were coming in and messing with it. So this is my video. Shit. Yeah. Oh, okay, so this is where I have to keep names secret. So, I'm a professor. I'm getting tenure in a week.
Yeah.
So, but my first year, I was so militant and hopeful, and was like, oh, I'm the only black person that works here, so I'm gonna make change. Ah. And it was after one of the many shootings. We have an email thread at school called the Issues Thread. It's lit. And this professor, white male, who says He emails the whole thread. He's like, I'm going to have safety pins in my office. If you want to wear a safety pin to support and show solidarity for our black students and stuff. And at the time, I was the advisor of the Black Student Union. And the black students had sent me this article. Does anyone follow Kinfolk Collective on Facebook? It's a page run by a black woman. And she writes articles dealing with race in America. And then the Facebook page is just dedicated to her and a bunch of other black women from all over posting memes and like reactions to these things. And so she came out with this article the same day. And my students sent it to me and they were like, we don't want any of our professors wearing safety pins. If they want to wear safety pins, have them safety pin a donation receipt from Black Lives Matter. And I was like, that's a great idea. So I sent it in the issues. And this guy like emailed my chair, complained. My chair told me not to say anything else in the issues thread because I don't have tenure yet. And then proceeded to email me personally and say, you hurt my feelings. You don't understand what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help your community. And I was like, well, maybe you should listen to the community. And so I'm petty in my work. So at that moment, and it's an ongoing project, as you'll see in the end, I collect memes. I can have entire intellectual conversations in memes, black memes in particular. And so I was like, well, I'm going to make a white fragility quilt so that this professor can stay warm. 2,000 safety pins with paper, and the safety pins are holding the paper together. Very, very fragile, like if you farted, it would tear. So there's these. And my galler still has it, but I'm like, all my installations are designed to be torn down, and then when they be installed again, they're bigger. Because I have so many more memes at this point. So, yeah, travel, okay. Let's go back to this. So, 2 summers ago, I decided to focus my work on actual research, like historical research, to kind of figure out why. Because remember I told you in the Bahamas, our government, like we have people in power that I memorized in 3rd grade. That are still in power. And I was like, how is this a thing? Like, and why is this a thing in black countries? Why is this a thing in Africa? And I had already been to Ghana, so that summer I decided to focus on actually researching. And I came through the textiles and the fabric. So when I first went to Ghana, all of my friends here were like, oh, don't buy the fake African fabric. You should buy the real African fabric made by Africans. And I was like, all right. So I went there, and once I got to the market, I was like, I want real African fabric. And they're like, okay, here. And I was like, yay. And then I went home and I started researching the code numbers on the bottom, and I was like, Beijing. This is Chinese. And so I went back to the same guy I bought it from, and he was like, no, it's African. I was like, it's Chinese. He's like, no, it's African. And so I pulled up my phone, and I was like, it's Chinese. And then he was like, yeah, but you bought it in Africa, so it's African. So I did a residency where I spent hours researching this stuff, and to put like years of research into like a small little talk. The process of wax printing it originated in China in the 8th century, and then it was perfected in Indonesia, and then the Dutch, in their attempt to colonize the Indonesians, stole the process, tried to sell it back to them, and other Europeans, they were like, ugh, no, we don't like that design. So then they dumped it in Africa. So that's why West African wax fabric is Dutch. The Dutch were also the ones that occupied the slave castles and shipped a bunch of black bodies across the ocean, but we'll talk about that later. So I went to Bali first to go to a few boutique studios, then on to Senegal, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and then Ghana. So this is Nana. She's the only woman that I work with that lets me photograph her, but I have women in different countries that I interview and talk to about this wax fabric. And their story is, yeah, you can come to Africa and get the Vlisco fabric, which is about $40 to $80 a yard. Very expensive. The actual African people can't afford it. Or you can buy the Chinese knockoff fabric, which goes directly into paying their rent, buying them groceries, and goes into the actual community, which blew my mind. But then if you think about it, there's similar things here that you're allowed to boycott if you're privileged, like Black Friday. You can boycott Black Friday if you can afford to buy regular priced goods. You can boycott fast food restaurants if you can afford to cook organic, if you have the time, you know? So yeah, she's my friend. She gives me a hard time sometimes. So now this is kind of getting into my new work. Welcome to Atlantica. So last year I got really sick, and I was in the hospital, and Trump and a bunch of stuff that I felt really out of control with. So I started reading a lot of Afrofuturist books and Nigerian science fiction books and watching a crap ton of Star Trek. By the way, I'm a huge Trekkie. And decided that I was just going to start living as if I was from another planet and I'm on my own world. I have my own rules. These are photographs taken. This one was in Lagos. This is an image of the reaction of the woman who was reacting to my travel partner. So at the time, I was traveling with someone from the Bahamas, and I told him, you can't take pictures of people without their permission, and especially not with your phone. They're okay if you take a picture with a camera, but they don't want you to take pictures of them with your phone because they all have phones too. They know about Twitter, they know about Live, they don't want to be on your social media. So he was taking a picture with his phone. I asked her to take a picture with my camera, and that's her reaction to him taking a picture with his phone. These images are hard to see. A lot of my work has texture variants. So the I will not is actually 1/4 inch thick oil paint on top of like a smooth resin with fabric sewed into wood and resin. You can kind of see on the back, each hole is drilled. And so my work is also rule-based. So I have rules for every piece that I start. I always work in multiples of 2. One, because if you mess up on the first one, you kind of perfect the second one. And then when I was in Ghana, my conversation with Nana about the fabric and what I was planning to do with it, she was like, if your work is going to be exploring the exploitation of West Africa and Chinese neocolonialism and British colonialism and, you know, exploited women and their labor, then you have to do the work yourself. So all the sewing, I do myself. All of the drilling, I do myself. Star Trek reference. You can kind of see the texture there. Can you see the shininess? It's resin. It's a drawing and a painting, and then resin goes on top, and then I drill, and then there's fabric. And oil paint. So the Queen, we used to have banners in our school of the Queen, this image. And when we were doing the Pledge of Allegiance, we would have to like turn facing her, she was on our money. I get that Americans are really intrigued by the royal family, but if you grew up in a colony, not really, not so much. She scared the crap out of me as a kid. Partly because we were told she was the embodiment of God in God's place. And so like anytime I did something wrong, I was like, the Queen is watching me. She's watching me. She freaks me out. So I have several pieces like this. This is Chinese knockoff wax African fabric with Chinese knockoff pearls. It's pretty big. So now we're getting to Atlantica. So the current president of Atlantica is James Baldwin. But there's currently an election. So these are the banners and scrolls you would see outside of the governmental building. Also, like, the helmets are just, like, for style only. They don't function, and you can smoke cigarettes in space. This is on resin and wood with black satin. So still working with the idea of what, so at this point, every piece I do is a question of what would this be on Atlantica? So if I see a band poster, I'm like, what would this be on Atlantica? If I see an inspirational poster, I'm like, what would this be on Atlantica? These are posters that you would see in someone's like a high schooler's bedroom on Atlantica, or maybe the dentist's office. It's easier to read in person, but it says with my ears to the streets and my eyes to the sky, I'm on another planet, my niggas, and you just fly. That's also Star Trek reference. This is another one of those reactionary photos. This is in Benin, where they all mostly drive motorcycles. That just blew my mind. So this is a technique that I developed while I was in Ghana. So I forgot to tell you guys tilting that happens. So this was this past summer. This is an area in Accra. Osu is where I like to stay because it's where my favorite bar that has live music is there. All the good food that won't make you throw up is there, and a lot of artists live there. And I saw this ad. And I was like, oh, that's such a great ad. Like, what do you notice about this ad? Two women. Just to give you a background, Ghana was also colonized by the British, just like the Bahamas. We have very similar homophobic colonial laws. So I took a picture of this, and there was a guy that had been following me down the street trying to sell me about it. And I stopped and took a picture, and he goes, like, sucked his teeth really long and hard. And I was like, what happened to you? And he was like, I don't like that. That's not right. And I was like, what's not right? The fabric? You don't like the design? And he was like, no, it's not right. Woman being a woman. And I was like, you think that's what it is? But I started thinking about it. African women don't tend to wear suits. In fact, I have a tailor there, and she's made work for me for years, and to this day, when I tell her what I want, she's like, you sure you don't want me to make you a dress? You're such a pretty girl, you shouldn't let me make you a dress, you never wear dresses. And I'm like, I don't wear dresses. And so I can see how this was taken. The next day, it wasn't up anymore, and they replaced it, same company, with a male figure. So I reached out and found the photographer who did the campaign. So this is some of the original imagery. I guess the cleavage is also suggesting you have to think in a very suppressed, like, evangelical society. Like, this would be an issue in the Bahamas too. So I thought, if they have a problem with faces of people that look too much like them, so they're relating them to themselves, what if I put a different identity on the piece? So this always really bugged me, because in the Bahamas we love Grace Jones. We love anyone that comes from the Caribbean and makes it big. We always claim them, even if they're from Jamaica or from the Bahamas. But no one ever wants to talk about the gender queerism of these celebrities, right? Well, we accept them, we just don't want to talk about that stuff. Nina Simone was queer. So this is a piece, work in progress. How to speak truth to power is refuse the cower. So these are reimagined ads on Atlantica. Same size as the billboard. projects out first, and then I buy the supplies, and then when it's time to sit down and execute, it's a horrible, horrible ordeal. So there's going to be 4 in the series, and they're all going to be rather large. This is a James Baldwin quote. That's how my studio looks right now. So you guys remember the white fragility quote? So one of my favorite artists here in LA, her name's Laborious, and she is also represented by Coagula, and she does quilts. She does contemporary quilting, and it's very laborious. This is one of her pieces. So her and I have been wanting to collaborate for years, but because both of our processes are very laborious, we just decided it would never happen, and then finally we just did studio visits with each other. We're like, it has to happen, let's make it happen. So we have a show opening in September with this collaboration, and you're the first to see. So I'm doing the center, which is all of my memes to date. Where you see the blue strips will be a certain blue fabric that I was obsessed with last summer, because it looks like Chinese porcelain, blue porcelain. Where you see Nina Simone, that's going to be drawn. It's just there as a placement. And then L'Oreal is doing the border. So there's the fabric. This is currently happening right now. I'm cutting these damn strips. Oh, and there will be like 20,000 safety pins and little frillies on the edges. This is the size when it's finished. So, thank you.
Turn up the lights so you can take
Yeah.
questions.
Okay. Good questions. Very good questions.
No pressure.
Can I ask a question? No.
Yes.
Can you talk, so I was interested in the digital layout. Is that you're doing, is my impression from your lectures that you first lay it out digitally? Is that, I don't know, can you talk a little bit more about that?
So I have a background in design. That's where I'm head of at Glendo. That comes from not having a lot of money. So when I was an undergrad, I was a scholarship student, and I used to borrow supplies from the departments that had free supplies. That tended to be like mostly the painting department. I was a drawing major. So before I would do a project, I would design it in Photoshop first, so I didn't make mistakes, and so that I could cut things perfectly. So I didn't waste supplies. That's why. Yeah, I do that for everything. Yeah.
How long, you said your projects always grow and more every time you reinstall it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest one you have right now?
I think the pinky head would be the biggest one, because that's the first one I started. But the meme one is very close, because I spend an hour a day collecting memes. I have an hour to read before bed, and then I do an hour of meme. And I just recently got into Hotep memes, and that's just like a whole other thing. I don't know if I'm going to mix them, but yeah, they get bigger until, I think when they sell is when I'll stop. And the Picky Head almost sold. So I was like, oh, people would actually buy this. So if it's sold to like a museum or something, like Shit is in the permanent collection of the California African American Museum. So like if something like that happened, I would stop it. But so far it hasn't happened, so the submission page is still up. Yeah. Yes?
Is Guinan your favorite character in Trekkie?
No.
You know who Guinan is, right?
Of course.
Somebody here know who Guinan is on Star Trek?
Whoopi Goldberg. My favorite character is Captain Sisko. He was like the only black captain, and he was badass, played by Avery Brooks. Yes.
Was there a particular reason behind your choice to like mix such like opposite mediums and then also to sew the text into the pieces?
That's a good question. I like to, in person, I'm very humble and kind and respectful. That comes from growing up in the Bahamas. But in my art, everything I want to say to people and upset people with comes out in the art. So when I was in grad school, the graphic design faculty used to pick on me a lot because my work was pretty and it was so designy. And so the text is intentionally, like, if you notice, it's usually off the plane a little bit, and the kerning is wrong. I do that to upset graphic designers. Painters don't want you to call certain things paintings, so if sometimes I call things paintings, and they're like, oh, but this one makes me easier, and I was like, it's a painting. I paint with thread, and a drawer is the same way. So like, my whole time going through academia, I had a lot of disputes with purists. In LA, there's a lot of purists that are like, I'm a painter, and I'm this and that, and I'm like, I'm gonna be whatever I want to be, whenever I want to be, and what are you gonna do?
Excellent.
So it's very defiant. And then also, like, there were comments about femininity, and I was like, well, I can sew. In the Bahamas, they force all of us to learn sewing. Like, we have a standardized test called the BGC, where we have to make a lab coat. And we have to cook a whole meal with someone watching us. And like, when I came to the US and found out, like, my students now don't even take home ec. So like, I have an assignment where they have to study Afro-dandyism and Afrofuturism, and they have to sew. And they're like, sew. And I'm like, what happens if you like bust your face open and you have to sew someone's flesh together? That's never gonna happen. And I'm like, sure it'll happen. Good, be prepared. So, you know, if people have a problem with it, then I dive into it more. And that came more from like advice from Tom Nechtel. He came to do a studio visit with me during grad school, and I was really depressed because all of my advisors were like, your work is too pretty. Why don't you make something ugly? And I told him that, and he was like, fuck that. He's like, just make everything super pretty. Throw glitter on it. And so I took his advice, and like, what are you gonna do?
Awesome.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I use wood.
Memes? Because I'm interested in language, and memes are the language of my generation and the generation below it. And it's a visual language, and it's as close to a universal language as we're going to get. Anyone who has the blessing of having the internet or a smartphone, like, I showed people in Senegal who didn't understand what I was saying a meme, and they got it. And they have a high potential to go viral. I also study viral videos, viral modes of making and speaking and communicating. Yeah. Yes?
Do you have issues using the images of people or copyrighted works?
No, I teach design. I know copyright.
That's what I know.
No, most of the images I use are for public consumption, and they're changed more than 33%. So, yeah. A lot of people bring that up, and I'm like, any artist using any imagery at this point in their life knows exactly why and how they can. Yes?
What is your future masterpiece dream?
I want to own an island that's just like an artist residency, and hurricanes don't exist nearby. Because I love island life, but hurricanes can just like ruin your life. That's my masterpiece would be to actually have Atlantica be a real thing. Because I'm so over Earth and humanoids, and like I'm frustrated with the news this week for like women's rights, and I'm over it. That would be my masterpiece, to no fear is what Nina Simone says. That's what freedom is, no fear. And on Atlantica. Yes? Thank you. Yeah.
How do you decide from your memes, like, how do you know if they won't repeat the same one again?
How do you know I won't repeat the same one again?
Like, how do you decide if they won't repeat the same one?
That's kind of nerdy, but I'll answer it. I have albums on my phone. So they all have their own folder. And because each tile takes 10 memes each, I limit it to that. So I know each folder is 10 memes, and then I have a program that puts it all into the tiles based on a template that I have. Sometimes they do repeat if I want them to be like mirrored to look like textiles. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about like the conversation of like the negative effects that memes have like in certain communities? Would that like?
Your voice is going a little.
Oh, sorry. Like the negative effects of like memes sometimes like they have in community. Cause that's something like.
Give me an example.
Like the like pro-Trump memes that like have like would that ever like be a conversation in your work?
I will never put Trump in my work.
No, yeah, but like.
Yeah.
That's fair, but like.
I mean, it does, but it's not something. I have a strict rule never to show negativity in my work. I always try to show what people don't show. So like, I went to this conference in Ghana that was all about Black women's depictions in art. And someone on the panel made a very strong argument about not showing babies and not showing slavery and not showing anything, but instead showing things that we don't see, like Black women as CEOs or Black women running planets and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is only showing what it could be and what it should be. Did that answer your question?
No, yeah.
Yes, question. How is your work with the Black Academy?
In the Bahamas?
Yes.
I am getting word back from the last biennial right now. Very well. We're a very close community there. I'm going to be in a show in Boston that's curated by a curator in the Bahamas. The piece I showed you with the Queen, that's the piece that's coming back from the biennial that was there. And it's weird because you can't critique the Chinese or the British that much, because the Chinese own like most of the island at this point. They've colonized and built this giant resort that put our country into a huge economic downfall. And the British, we still have the Privy Council, and we're not independent. We say we're independent, but we're still a commonwealth. So there's no, like, they can just say we won't show it. When I was doing hair relaxer work, the civilian Bahamian was very outraged because I was using like 50 gallons of hair relaxer, and they were like, she's wasting all this hair relaxer. Yeah. So like, but I think for the most part they're very supportive, but we're all making work like this. Like a lot of Bahamians have left, and we're making work about like, it's not cool that people are having homophobic like fights on the bus, It's like, that's not normal. When I moved here, there were a lot of things where I was like, oh, so getting beaten in school isn't a thing here. Like, where's that a thing? I'm like, I don't know. Places. Yeah, but we're very supportive of each other, yeah. Yes?
So seeing as how you can dreams and stuff in your artwork, has there ever been an issue where you figured like maybe this will become dated, or said maybe took on a different meaning, like that very hate thing became suddenly like a hate symbol for people? Has that ever come up?
I mean, the only memes I really use are used as like patina, like pattern or textile. So like you have to get really close to see them. And then they're so unique to the Black community. Like I don't see, unless like a hotep went crazy and started changing the memes, and I feel like they're not going to take that much. They don't even read, so I don't think they'll take that much effort to. I don't know. I'm not worried about that very much. Yeah. I mean, if it happens, I'm a designer and a visual communicator. I can adapt. I think any good artist can adapt. Because I just found a piece from undergrad. It's awful. You guys gotta hear this. It's awful. It's a 6 by 8 foot drawing of Saddam Hussein as the Terminator in the Terminator 2 poster, holding a gun with a noose hanging from it, and his little red eye, and it says the Noosinator has become the noose. It's so bad. I pulled it out of the attic and I like dry heaved. And get this, it won an award in the show. But if I put that up now, people would be like, what is this? But yeah, it was like a colored pencil drawing too, and it was like so juicy and rendered out. And I just saw it and I was like, this is horrible. The typeface is horrible. The value is horrible, but it won an award. That's dated. Yes.
You reference a lot of pop culture in your work, but are there any like artists who like in school you were like, oh my god, I love this person's work, and it's just like coming out in my work?
Not in school because I didn't get a lot of, the artists I like now are mostly Black, Indigenous, or queer. I didn't get that in school. I got a lot of white, male, and dead. So right now, I am like in love, like super fangirl of Diedrich Bracken's work. He does weaving on a whole ass loom. And he's like focusing on Black cowboys and how like the idea of a cowboy was more realistically related to like a cowboy as we know it is more than likely going to be a Black person, like the way the word was derived and what it means. And so he does like silhouettes of cowboys and different figures in like weaving, and the colors are amazing and beautiful. I also really like Njideka Akunili Crosby's work. She's a Nigerian American artist. Like I like artists that have long, tedious, laborious processes where the actual material and process means something in the work. So there's a lot of textile artists that I like right now. Yeah, good question. Yes.
Could you talk about that class that you taught that's like, what was it?
Pretty Hurts? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
What was the issue with that?
Well, it was at Art Center, and it was a class analyzing process-based art and feminism. And it was comparing the two conversations that were happening at the time where feminism was getting really hot, marketable, and corporatist. And I used Beyonce as the spearhead for that because when she first came out as a feminist, a lot of people were attacking her for it, and I realized they were attacking, it was intellectuals attacking someone who they saw as being not intellectual enough to participate in feminism. And there were also a lot of conversations not happening about Black women and Latinx communities and queer, right? So the class was going to analyze feminism from that perspective. It was more of a push for Western feminists to move to a global feminist view. And we explored process-based art as a means to communicate better in your work. So a lot of students that I was teaching were struggling, like they made a piece, and the piece meant all of this, but when you look at the piece, it didn't mean all of this. Like they were having a hard time connecting what the piece was supposed to mean with what it looked like. So that was the whole class. Like we would have discussions about feminism, we would watch movies, read articles, and then I would have individual critiques with the students to get them to fix their work. So I'll give you an example, like Brian Ortega. He was a student from Compton, and he was making work about like gender binaries and toxic masculinity, and his work was like pink puffy rainbows and stuff. And he was like, I'm trying to get people to see that men can do this too. And I was like, yeah, but if you're not in front of your work, it just looks like a pink puffy rainbow that anyone could have made. And so we worked with him on titling. So he would title it like, you know, you bitch ass, and like masculine slang that would be paired with this soft piece. And that's kind of what I taught the students, like how to get your message to as many audiences as possible using the process and materials and even the label as a canvas. Yeah. Yes?
If you were sitting in front of, or standing in front of a bunch of upcoming, let's say, artists, what advice would you give them?
Advice for what?
For upcoming artists, like if they're like, should I do this or should I not? Should I continue with my career as an artist?
I need more than that. What's the end game? What's the
What
output?
can
Like how to be a
you do?
successful artist?
Yeah, or just give it a shot, because a lot of people might, still be up in the air. Should I continue or should I not?
I always tell my students, if you don't do art outside of school, you're not an artist. If you don't think about it outside of school, you're not an artist. If you don't do difficult things and have the ability to cope with difficult things and get through it so that you can keep making the work, then this isn't for you. I see a lot of students, like it's my job to tell students whether they should move on or not. And I can tell by the second week if a student is just good at drawing or if they think about it all the time, if they do it all the time. Because when you get out of school, no one gives you deadlines, no one cares about your work, no one cares about whether you're working on it. You have to be the one to do it. And if you don't have that already, that's nothing, you can't learn that in school. I can teach you the value scale and the color theory and line and all these other things, but I can't teach you how to have initiative, work ethic, and integrity. And to be an artist, you have to do stuff you don't want to do a lot. Like I fried chicken gizzards in a gas station in undergrad to pay my rent. But I still went home and sketched. I still went home and looked up other artists and tried out new watercolor palettes. I still did stuff. I teach full time, and it's hard. Because you guys are draining. It's hard to teach 120 people a week when you're an introvert, and then you have to go out and socialize on the weekends, and you got to do your studio. But I do it. It's not pleasant, but I do it because I'm an artist, and if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be here. So if you don't have that, if you don't feel that, it's okay to fail. It's okay to say this isn't for you, but if you don't have it, it's not going to happen.
Thanks.
Yes?
Who inspired you to do art?
This is so cute. I used to keep a sketchbook so I could make friends. It was a practical thing. I didn't talk to people very much in the Bahamas when I was younger because I was smart. And in the Bahamas, if you're smart, you get made fun of. But if you have a sketchbook and you can draw dang drawings, then people are usually like, oh, what's that? Oh, you're so cool. You're so busy. You draw like that. You know, so like, that was a way for me to make friends. The Bahamas also has art in the curriculum very heavy until high school. So we were all doing it together, and I was always better. That was a good question. Yes?
Can you in your lecture talk about a lot of interest now, attempts and processes that are really laborious and don't work out over and over and over again. Do you ever call it and say, this just isn't going to work, or how do you maintain, how do you decide when, if it's not going to work out or when it's going to work out?
I don't think I've ever walked away from anything.
Oh.
Because that's just how and this is why people get frustrated with me at work, because I'll want to do something and they'll be like, we can't do that. And I'm like, sure we can do that. Why can't we do that? I found this rule. We can do that. And they're like, no, but there's this new rule. And I'm like, okay, well, let me find another one. I think people get annoyed by that, but I'm very goal-oriented. So if I don't complete something, it's not pleasant. It's not a good experience for me or the thing that didn't get completed. Like, I've gone out and bought materials to make a whole other dish, to remake a dish that I messed up because I was like, I really wanted that. I saw it on Tasty and I really wanted it. I'm gonna try it again. There are pieces that I've stored and then come back to and like, okay, now I know what I can do with this now. Like I did a portrait of my roommate in college and she turned out to be like a huge racist. And I found her the other day in the garage and I was like, oh, I can totally do this. And titled it, Best Friends until she dated, because she started dating this guy who had one leg, and he was racist. And he sat in my house and he was like, yeah, but you don't understand, black people are just less, they just don't have the brain capacity as white people, it's science. And that's when we stopped being friends, and I had already done the portrait, and so now I found it, I was like, oh, I can just title this Friends Until She Dated a One-Legged Racist. But I don't walk away from things also because I can't afford to. I mean, I'm doing a lot of residencies now because they're providing materials, so I have this printmaking residency at the beginning of June, and they're like, you can do whatever you want, we have tons of paper and ink, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, yes, because that's where I'm going to play. But when it comes to my own supplies, I'm like, if I mess up, I sand. I re-gesso. I've sanded things until it was like paper thin, just to keep the materials. Yes?
Did that professor that emailed you ever see the quilt that you made?
I'm sure he's heard about it because a lot of my colleagues went to the opening. I'm waiting until I get tenured to engage with him again. Because he's so problematic. Like, I have students that took his class and they were like, he says things like, black people can't swim. He makes jokes like that and thinks it's funny. He's like one of those professors that, is this still being recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
I can cut it if you prefer.
Cut this part. He thinks he's attractive, and so he flirts and hangs out with students and stuff, and he's not aware that he's no longer their age. But is to like be funny, but the students are woke. Like students nowadays are woke. Like you can't make jokes about black people not knowing how to swim. Although like most of me and my friends know how to swim.
Is this professor that you speak of a political science professor?
Is that like a thing? No, it's
Oh, okay. No, just because I know somebody like that who's a professor at Glendale, and I thought it was him because he kind of said comments like those, and I was like, this is why we don't talk to each other.
I've been screenshotting the issue thread for like 2 years now. I'm gonna make work out of it. Because the fights that happen on this thread are epic. Like when they stop referring to each other by name and they're like, if the president of this would like to say this, and I'm just like, oh no. And there's 2 like heavy Trump supporters that are on the list, and they always post stuff. They just go, bloop, look at this video of Indianapolis. He's just so amazing. We should invite him to campus. And then everyone's like, how dare you?
And I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about laborious processes and immigration, and if there's a connection there for you, and how you kind of also think about immigration in the works you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Immigrants are the most exploited labor in any space. So in the Bahamas, my mom was an immigrant. Here, we were immigrants. So it's not only do you have to assimilate and learn everything, but people make it so much harder on you. So I found that teachers were less likely to help me. They would just give me the book and tell me vaguely where I should read, and I always had to do a lot of work on my own. I had to do a lot of research on my own. They would act like they didn't understand. That's why I speak the way I speak, and I speak different dialects, because I code switch a lot. Because when I first moved to the US, they thought I was slow because of my accent, and they just wouldn't take the time to listen to me. So I had to spend a lot of labor, I want to say all the way up until grad school, to do a lot of my own work. I had to figure out the scholarships on my own. I had to find out where the financial aid office was. I had to learn about student loans on my own. And I just felt like if you weren't a part of this country, no one wanted to invest the time to help you become a part of the country. And it's still to that, like, I still get into arguments today with my colleagues and stuff, and they're just like, well, you don't understand, it's a cultural difference. Like, they'll always say it's a cultural difference whenever because passive aggression isn't a concept we have in the Bahamas. If you step on my tongue and say ouch right away, I'm not gonna like wait a couple of days and be like, ouch. People read that a lot. I've been called aggressive and abrasive, and I'm like, no, I'm just stating facts. And so I have to do a lot of work to learn society here and to learn, like, applying for the FAFSA for the first time. Like, my family almost got scammed because, like, my mom, none of my family knew what that was. They just knew they needed to do it so I could get money to go to school. And so they were handing out these things like, oh, we'll fill out the FAFSA for you. Went to this hotel conference room, and they're like, pay us $6,000 and we'll do FAFSA. And I remember sitting there and being like, I feel like this isn't a good thing. And my mom was like, what do you know anything about it? We need their help. And I was like, I'll figure it out. Like, I just don't want to do this, I'll figure it out. So then I went and spent hours at the library, and I asked the librarian about it, and she's like, just Google it. That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of labor. It's like, if I were like Becky with the good hair, with a nice like leather-bound Bible, and I walked in and I was like, I need help with the FAFSA. And I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do today. But when I walk in, like, this is just how everything goes. Like, I can walk into the post office and they're like, the envelopes are over there. It's like, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen to everyone. I just think that if you're not a part of a certain elite, then one, they think that you're more resilient than you are, so you don't need help. And then when you do need help, they're like, well, I thought everyone could do this. Why can't you do this? Because I didn't grow up in the school systems here. I didn't have a counselor in high school. I didn't know about colleges. I didn't know about applications. I didn't know about scholarships. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm missing, and it takes privilege. Education is a privilege, and I didn't have a lot of it. I didn't even know how to type until my senior year of high school, or know about like Word or anything. We didn't have computers or internet. And they didn't, like, when you're an immigrant, you're assimilating, no one takes any of that into account. So that's the kind of labor that you have to do. Did I answer your question?
It's a great answer. I'm not sure it answered my question, but it's a brilliant response. I wanted to know how or if the stitchery that is so labor intensive, the processes, the 20,000 pins, you know, that what I see in there is also, and I guess this is my take on it, is also referencing that kind of labor.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's referencing, it's trying to, all of my work combines the different identities that I have. So it's moving in the labor of Ghanaian, like Ghanaian women, I didn't talk about them that much, but they do, their whole life is laborious. They have to move tons and pounds of fabric into the market. And if you've ever seen like the image of women carrying things, like in Ghana, there will be women on motorcycles with babies on their backs and like gallons of water on their head. And they'll just be balancing the whole thing and like waving at people. But that's laborious. Like, and the labor in China to make the fabric, and then just in general, the exploited labor of women. There's a lot of things that women do in their roles, in the binary roles, that they don't get paid for, that they're just expected to do. Like, go and get this drink. Did you preheat this? Did you, like, being a butler, moving your kids around. Like, those are things that when men are asked to do it are typically something like, oh, he's helping. This is so great that he's helping. And so it's a stitching, so to speak, of different forms of labor. Because I think that's a good plane to relate to other people. Because everyone has some type of laborious aspect of their life that they really genuinely feel like they shouldn't have to do. Right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So, as an immigrant and as an artist, how do you feel when you see the clear appropriation of culture? For example, I went to the art show here in LA like back in February, and it's kind of a recent thing, the fact that the Aboriginal art from Australia is starting to have, well, number one, make it forever or for a long time. It's not, you know, the kind of thing that they used to make in order to show it as a map and then destroy it. Now it stays there. But then when I went there, there was this girl, and I said, oh, this is really cool. How was the relationship with this? It's like, oh, my mom does it. And I was like, oh, okay. There were other Aboriginal artists, and I'm sure that they will have an explanation for every single thing that was in that piece of art. But I don't know, and I feel a lot, I'm from Mexico, and I feel like a lot that people go and just use Mexico to show you what it has been, you know, the big sombrero and the Cinco de Mayo and all of these, pretty much that has nothing to do with as a culture Mexico has been, you know. And so I was just, you know, wondering, you know, because you're from the Bahamas and you came here, but now, you know, you're starting to feel that you also need to go back to Africa and you know. So my question is that, you know, how do you feel as an artist when you see people, because, well, they're definitely misappropriating, I don't know.
Cultures, yeah, I understand. We have to agree on the definition of appropriation.
Okay.
Because I feel like a lot of people misuse it a lot, especially my students. Appropriation is when someone that's higher than you in society uses what you use or own or identify as, and then it suddenly becomes great because it's on them, but it's chastised when it's on you. So like, my friends argue a lot about white people with dreads, and that's a great example of appropriation, because I've been wanting to dread my hair for years, but I always joke that I'm I'm not gonna dread until after tenure. Because dreads carry a connotation. Even in Ghana, my hair is natural, but they call me Rasta because they don't wear their hair natural. And so, yogis dreading their hair is idolized, and it's not looked down upon. But if a black person has dreads and applies for a job, then it is. And in a lot of cases, dreads are, you can't even wear it to work, it's in the policy. And definitely the Bahamas, you can't have dreads, and it's like a black country. So it's like a very colonial thing to distance yourself from what you look like naturally, to not look like a savage. So that's my definition of appropriation. So I've seen a couple of lower generations using their culture in their work. Like I met a few artists that were doing work from Belize. They were making work about Belize and they had never been, you know? And so that was kind of like, okay, so what are you making work about? Like what is your work about how you don't have that culture you wish you did? Or are you just painting that culture on your canvas because your great-grandmother was from Belize? You know, so like, I don't think in binaries. I think more mosaically, and it's situationally. So, yeah, I have a hard time. I went to Bali, and there were a lot of white women that opened yoga studios there, and they all had dreads. And I was uncomfortable the whole time, and like my colleagues, they didn't understand why, and I was just like, I don't know, like I was always told I could never have dreads. Like I chemically relaxed my hair and probably gave myself cancer for years because I wanted to, we were taught to avoid that. But she gets to wear it freely. That's what appropriation is. Like, so, I mean, to your point, you're Mexican. If you came in with your culture, you're already Mexican. Yeah, here in this country, which is a white supremacist country, you would be looked down upon, especially with our president. And on the other hand, if Becky came in with the same thing on Mexican Day, she wouldn't really be looked down upon. So if we could agree on that definition, when other artists do it, like there's an artist right now up at CAM who's using the wax fabric in her work. She has a whole solo show. And I met her and I asked her, I was like, so, where'd you get your fabric? She's like, oh, I don't know, like my mom had some laying around, so I was like, oh, well, what kind of fabric is it? And she's like, I don't know. But meanwhile, I'm like, is it High Target? Is it like French knockoff High Target? Like, what is this? What is this brand? And it bummed me out. Like, I was so depressed after I talked to her because I was like, man, you don't even know. This could be so much, this work could be so much deeper, but you don't know. You're just, it's a nasty little cherry on top that no one likes. You just take it off and put it on the side anyway. So like, why does it need to be there? You should cut that too.
I
Just keep cutting.
No worries.
I always ask. I always call people out, but that's the Bahamian in me, and I can do it in a really like respectful way. And my motto is, if you're mad, it's about you.
Yes.
Because like I don't take anything personal. Like people post millennial articles all the time. They're like, millennials are too lazy to eat cereal, mom. And I'm just like, sucks to be that millennial. Like that's not me. So like, what's good? You know. Any other questions?
Can I just bring up the term appropriation? Some people would use that about you using the images of James Baldwin and Nina Simone and so on and so forth in your work. And what is the term that you would use for your, is it homaging? Is it like, how is it not appropriation when you're actually taking someone of higher status within like a cultural context that you're sort of celebrating and giving extra power to, you know, like that your imagery does use pop culture photography of these famous black figures. So what is the terminology that you use about that?
Well, appropriation art as a movement was to make commentary on something that already existed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not making commentary on Grace Jones as a person. She's a character in my narrative. So her existence in my work is she's a completely different person in my work. So, I don't know, like, I'm not higher than she is. So I can't be I'm not appropriating anything about her. So, I guess that's my perspective on it. It's the equivalent to me of like, I don't know if anyone else did this, but when I was in junior high and college, I would cut my idols out and put them in my room. I put them on everything. I was obsessed with the Spice Girls. I had everything, like scratch and sniff calendars. I would put them everywhere, and that was like these are my peeps. Like these are my they're here, ride or die. Like when I hated everyone, I could go in my room and they would be there. So this is these are my characters. I don't know if I'm highlighting them or just reinventing them, but I don't have enough privilege to appropriate. Not as a woman, not as a black woman, not as a queer black woman. I don't have it. I mean, I'd like to. I have this performance piece that I'd like to do where if I can find an artist that could make me like a silicone bodysuit to be a white male for a day, to just wear it on campus after tenure, and go to a Senate meeting and just sit down and be like, what's up? I have something to say. Second, I don't know, that's it. I told my chair that fantasy and he thought it was hilarious. And I was like, I just want to see what would happen. Like, obviously I'm not a white male because I've got this grotesque, silicone bodysuit on. But what if? Have you guys ever imagined being a white male in America? That's lit. I just want to try it for a good month. If you gave me a month and people believed it, I could do a lot. I feel like I could.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I have a question. So I have two close friends that are black, and they, I didn't know it till I moved to LA because I grew up in a very white town, but their insecurity about their hair is so deep, and it's across all black people I know, but especially them. I see them struggle with it every day, and they struggle with wearing either wigs or treating their hair or just going natural, and I'm always trying to be supportive but without overstepping. Because you've gone natural. How long did it take you to be I'm happy with my hair the way it is?
I'm still working through it.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, even when you're natural, there's ways to be natural. You have to have definition.
Yeah.
Then we have textures. Are you a 4C or a 3C?
Yeah, textural.
And then it's I remember I took a picture in my garage after working and I was sweaty and my hair was huge. And I posted on Instagram and one of my black friends was like, oh, it's so great that you're just letting your hair out and not even worrying about how it looks. And I was like, oh, I look bad. I was so upset about that. I went out and bought edge control and I was like, I can't let my kitchen sinks show. That's what we call the peasies that happen. And I'm still self-conscious. Even amongst naturals, there's hierarchies. It's ingrained. It's from slave culture.
Yeah.
The hair relaxer was invented for black men to integrate and work with white society. And then black women started using it as they could start working. So it was designed for us to blend in. And it's not just the black community. Any community with kinks knows what a hair relaxer is. So it's heavy. It's super heavy. There's a lot of memes online of Michelle Obama with a fro. Because when she was, POTUS, was it? First lady. When she was first lady, I want her to be POTUS. When she was first lady, that meme went around a lot. Because a lot of women in the natural hair community was like, show your natural hair, Michelle, come on. Because they wanted her to be the spokesperson. And I was like, damn, that's rough. Because she's also in the White House. She's surrounded by whiteness, literally, all day. You can't be natural that long.
Yeah.
Even at work, everyone knows me, but still, there's always one person that'll be like, oh, your hair's and I'm just and I'm good at doing it now, where I'm like, oh no, there's a lot of coconut oil in there, you'll be greasy for days. And they're like, oh, but really, I'm I'm not a dog. Yeah. My hair can do a lot. I can have dreads tomorrow if I wanted to. It's very versatile, but there's a lot of anxiety that comes with it. When I interviewed for grad school, I was in the middle of transitioning, so I had like fuzzy here and then long stringy here, and I wore a beanie because I was scared. I was like, are they gonna judge me? Like, what are they gonna think? I don't want to be too black for this space.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, no, sorry.
What was your favorite art?
My favorite art? Is it horrible if I can't remember the artist's name?
No.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what the art was. I was in Spain, and it was a piano that had a piano chair in front of it, so you could sit down and play it, but on all of the keys were upside down razor blades. Right? It was just so seductive. Like, you wanted to sit down, but like I can still feel like what it would feel like on my fingertips. And I sat with that piece for an hour. And I was lost too. I wandered into the gallery and I saw it. I was like, just a piano with like razor blades on all of the keys. That was a good question. Yes.
One of the different countries that you've been to in Africa and other places, do you also like see some of those same countries here and like in LA, because LA is considered the most diverse ethnic city in the world, as the mayor said and as you said. So can you, like myself, in order, I don't feel like I have to travel around the world because of all these representations that are here. You got to spend time going into this community and seeing what the only thing that's different from last week. But as far as the people and the culture and all that, it's all right here. Do you have an association with the culture here? I know it's not that I'm saying you go to particular communities and bring them into your art.
Sometimes. I mean, I know the Bahamians here. I used to live in Inglewood. That's where a lot of like Africans live. But it's not exactly the same because you're not like sitting in the dark because there's no electricity talking about mosquitoes. You're not eating fufu and light soup with your fingers. You're not having diarrhea with people that live in the room next to you. Like it's different. If you came to the Bahamas, if you really came to the Bahamas, like not just in the tourist areas, if you came over the hill, you'd be eating with us. You'd be dancing with us. You'd be doing jumping. You wouldn't be on a beach. So like the places are important because when people come here, this isn't a developing country. There's air conditioning, there's Wi-Fi just about everywhere, there's electricity, you can drink from the tap. So I think, yes, I know of the communities and I have tons of friends here, but what I'm interested in is hearing the stories and interviewing and actually talking to people that live that life there. And how it relates to what I grew up with. Like, I'm getting ready to take 20 students there this summer, and I was so excited about it, and people keep reminding me, they're like, our students didn't grow up without electricity. Our students didn't grow up with open cesspits. And I have to keep reminding myself that, so I'm over-preparing them, because I realized that I went to Ghana, and I was like, it's just like the Bahamas, it's amazing. But when I've taken people there before, they're like, oh my God, everyone's hungry. There's poop in there, and the electricity is off, and the water doesn't get hot. We can't brush our teeth with the water. And these are just things I'm used to. Like, I boil my own water to take baths. And so my colleagues are constantly reminding me, like, it's a different place. But that different place is what I'm interested in. Because everyone gets Americanized when they come here.
You know, it's getting late. Maybe one more question, because you've been amazingly generous, but, you know. One more?
You mentioned Atlantica as your own little, I don't know what it's little, but what is Atlantica?
It's a pretty large planet, actually, as a matter of fact. So when you're hungry, all you have to do is think about what you want, and it just materializes in your mouth. All you have to do is swallow. There is no concept of death. It's basically whatever I want it to be, and no one can say anything about it. Because it's authority, it's defiance, it's, like right now I'm working on a new series with influencers on Instagram, where they're running, there's an election and they're running for the election, and I'm going to be doing their electoral posters. And they're all black women because they're running for president on a region in Atlantica that is a patriarchy. Only women live there, and they just reproduce themselves. But, like, I've gotten, like, my favorite authors and, like, actors, like, an actor just shared. Have you guys seen The Twilight Zone, the new Jordan Peele? So you know the female comedian? She's sharing my work. I'm friends with her. I took her mom to Ghana last summer, but still, like, I was like, oh my god, you're summer. But they're interested, and they're like, so what would I be on Atlantica? Like, people are starting to ask me, like, well, what would I be on Atlantica? And I'm like, you, girl. I don't know. But there's, like, different, it's my coping mechanism. It's my excretory tool to deal with this, like, this planet. Like, whenever, like, my friends do something stupid, I'm like, ugh, you humanoids. It's so boring. And they're just like, shut up. And my cover is that I'm here observing. So I'm an alien observing. And there's aliens all over the place. There's even like a whole race of vampires on Atlantica to explain why like black women don't age. And that's based off of like this book I read. If anyone's read the Gilda stories, has anyone read the Gilda stories? Gilda, the Gilda stories. It's about this black lesbian former slave vampire. And the whole book is the stories of her going from when she freed herself to like 20, I think it goes to 2049 or something like that. And she's a vampire, but they take blood in exchange, they give you your dreams. So they figure out what you want to do in life and what your passions are, and they implant it in your head so that you can do it. And in exchange, they take your blood. Yeah. I'm sure there'll be a book. I do art books too. So I'll probably do like a super nerdy Game of Thrones type book where I have maps and like stuff. When I have time.
Yeah. Well, April Bay, thank you so much.